Crimson Tide Rewind is also brought to you by Baumhower's Victory Grille, legendary fun, legendary food, and the official watch party location of the Crimson Tide. Now, here's Roger Hoover.
Roll Tide and welcome to Crimson Tide Rewind, live from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills, presented by the Alabama Department of Public Health, who reminds Alabama, don't wait, vaccinate. Roll Tide, everyone. I'm Roger Hoover alongside former Crimson Tide linebacker Cory Reamer. And Cory, the Alabama Crimson Tide, 2-0.
2-0, it wasn't pretty. We all were a little bit more stressed than we probably planned on being on Saturday, and we said it on after the game was over with. I think Alabama fans are going to be excited when South Florida is no longer on our schedule. I think we got one more.
2026, the Bulls do come back to Tuscaloosa.
Okay. All right. Well, we will be looking at that game completely differently after the two games that we've played against them the last 2 years. I mean, they come in and they give us every single thing we got. Obviously, last year was a little bit different situation. I think Coach Saban was trying to prove a point in the quarterback situation. Goes out there and Jalen Milroe doesn't get a start, doesn't play at all. And then turn around this year, and we just had so many mistakes in the first half, but 5 minutes left to go in the game, find a way to put 21 points on the board real quick, and the score was definitely not a good picture of what the actual game was. But all in all, it was a win. You got to take it. When you're in college football, especially these days, getting to 2-0 is the main goal. You walk away with a win. You go back to the drawing board and you figure out what you did wrong and try to fix a lot of those mistakes.
So the offense able to have some explosive plays in the fourth quarter, outscoring the South Florida Bulls 28-3. The defense only allowing one touchdown, kind of a bend, don't breaks type night, it seemed like. For the defense.
And they got put in some pretty tough situations. I mean, there was a couple turnovers, some penalties that that didn't help them out. But between the 20s, it seemed like South Florida was able to move the ball a decent amount. And but when they got into that red zone, they were able to really shut them down, hold them to some field goals, especially late in the game. South Florida had an opportunity to score late to take the lead. I think it was take the lead or maybe even tie the ball game up. And they really got a crucial stop inside the 10-yard line or 15-yard line, gets them to a field goal. You got to give them a lot of credit. And there's a lot of work to be done on both sides of the ball. We talked about the difference between week 1 and week 2 and what you as a team can improve on. There's usually a lot of room for improvement. After a game like Western Kentucky, the ease that we were able to go out there and have success on offense and really didn't feel very threatened by Western Kentucky's offense at all. Kind of hard to figure out exactly what you have when you go back and watch the tape. Did a lot of things well, but the mistakes are a little bit harder to find. This game, I imagine Coach DeBoer and his staff, when they showed up on Sunday and watched this tape, they had a number of things to get fixed because, this defense holding them to 13 points. In the first half, there was a couple throws that went sailing over a few wide receivers from South Florida that could have easily been completions and big plays. So this game, we had a lot of rotation going on, a lot of different positions. We saw guys running out. We played 20 guys on defense the first game. We had a number of guys that were rotating in that secondary. There's still, it seems like we're a broken record because every year about this time of the season, we always talk about we're just trying to figure out what the right mix is at each position. So we've had a different offensive line, moving some guys around. Some guys get hurt. A lot of replaced guys in the secondary on defense. But I got faith in this staff. They're going to go back to the drawing board and really get this kind of ironed out and figure out how to eliminate a lot of the mistakes. But they played well enough to get the win.
Played well enough to get the win. Again, 42-16 was the final score at Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium this past Saturday. Now the Crimson Tide a perfect 2-0, getting ready to take on the Wisconsin Badgers coming up on Saturday. Another team that's 2-0. We'll be previewing the Wisconsin game coming up later in the show, but we want to hear your phone calls and get your thoughts on Alabama's Week 2 performance against South Florida. If you'd like to join us on the show, give us a call at 877-202-BAMA. That is 877-202-BAMA-2262. And you can join us and give us your thoughts on the Crimson Tide in South Florida and what's coming up against Wisconsin. We're with you for the next hour from Baumhower's Victory Grille here in Vestavia Hills, Alabama. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Down pickup or second down right here for the Tide. Second and goal from the 10. Quarterback keep right side. Milroe cuts it back now, cuts to the edge. He's at the 5. He's into the end zone. Touchdown, Alabama. Jalen Milroe stopped and started twice. The 10-yard carry finds pay dirt, and Alabama takes a 6-3 lead.
2 rushing touchdowns for Jalen Milroe, a pair of passing touchdowns as well, a 4-touchdown performance there. He also had 5 touchdowns week 1 against Western Kentucky, so 2 games, 9 touchdowns for Jalen Milroe. Yeah,
he was making a lot of plays with his feet on Saturday, especially in that first half, and then obviously towards the end of the game had some explosive plays, really helped pad some of those stats, but you got to give him a lot of credit. He had guys in his face all night long for South Florida. They seemed to be able to dial up blitzes at just the right time. Weren't able to pick up a lot of those, and he was really running around making plays with his feet, which we've known him to do. It's obviously been a strength of his, but getting involved with the passing game as well. He improved a lot through last season. We'd heard through camp, that was one of the things that the coaching staff was really continuing to work on. And we saw some of that on display on Saturday. I thought he's done extremely well, but he's not going to get away from that bread and butter. Last year he tried to start out trying to do too much in the passing game, trying to stay in the pocket, become that pocket passer. And they finally turned let loose of the reins a little bit, let him use his feet. But Saturday was one of those things where he kind of had to. He was moving around a decent amount, making plays all over the field. So hopefully we get the same kind of performance, maybe 3-4 touchdowns from Jalen Milroe on Saturday against Wisconsin. I think we'll be okay. I think we'll be able to survive.
We'll certainly take that. Again, if you want to join us on the show tonight, give us a call at 877-202-BAMA. And right now we will go to the phone lines for our first call of the evening. We're going to stay here in Birmingham where Mike joins us now. Roll Tide, Mike.
Roll Tide indeed, man. I'm tell you something. That was one of those kind of games that made you want to sweat and everything, but we persevered. Now, let me tell you something. Alabama Notre Dame had the same slim lead of 14-13. They were heavy favored in those games. Different was Notre Dame failed to hold on. They choked. Bama pulled away and wasn't going away. And nearly covered the spread. Bama found a way to get themselves reignited despite the penalties and the turnovers. They reignite that punt return. It really helped set things up, Bama. They were to cruise away. Coach said, because it doesn't indicate this game was a tight one, but they managed to pull away. And I expect now to take down Wisconsin on Saturday. I think they're back in gear now. I think we got a STEM test from South Florida. I think we're going to move on and take down Wisconsin and get ready with Georgia in a couple of weeks. It's a one game at a time thing with Bama. I feel they can do this thing, win the SEC title, take to the 12-team playoff. We're in the playoffs. That's why we're in the playoffs. No matter what number we are, we're in the playoffs, guys. We're going to do this thing.
Hey, appreciate it, Mike. We always appreciate the optimism from Mike. Already in the playoffs, 2 games into the season, looking like we did on Saturday. I think we're going to be all right. I think I agree with Mike. I think this was a good learning experience for this team. I mean, we said it last year. This team was counted, as out. They weren't going to win, have a chance to win very many ball games after that South Florida game last year and turn around and win the SEC and make it to the playoffs with, 1 play away from making it all the way to the championship game. So, but he is right. I mean, you got to give him. He makes a good point. Notre Dame's got a lead, go up against Northern Illinois, and they end up losing that ball game. Easily could have been Alabama. There was, this is a lesson for this team that they've got to go make sure that they come out with the same intensity all the time, no matter who the opponent is. It's that old adage that Coach Saban has always said. It doesn't matter who's on the other sideline. Don't focus on the scoreboard. Go out there and play the way that you're supposed to play. And if we didn't, we found a way to win the ball game, even though we had the number of mistakes and turnovers and all this adversity that we were facing, they found a way. And I think that's a lot of these guys that have a lot of faith in who they are as a team, who's around them. They know they can go out there and take care of business, but I wish that they'd not make us stress so much over it for the first 3.5 quarters. Yeah, the South Florida versions of the show the last couple of years have been a little interesting.
Yeah. I mean, last year definitely was its own kind of monster that was coming off the Texas game as well. We're in a little bit of a better mood tonight. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we'll take this all day long. Last year you don't know who the quarterback is. You're trying to figure all that out. It's a monsoon. Everybody was there just being miserable. It was a miserable game to watch, be at, all that stuff. This one was a little bit different. Certainly is. Alabama gets the win again, 42-16, the final score. Again, thanks to Mike for being our first caller tonight. We are going to take your calls for the next hour, 877-202-BAMA, the number to dial. I want to remind you as well to keep up with everything Alabama with the Alabama Crimson Tide mobile app presented by Cadence Bank. It's available at the App Store and Google Play. Download the Alabama Crimson Tide mobile app now for free. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. 3rd down and 4 from the USF 5-yard line. Alabama up by a point. Milroe gets the snap, steps back in the pocket, stays on his feet. Milroe to the 5. Milroe to the end zone. Touchdown, Alabama. Jalen Milroe with a 5-yard touchdown rush, and the Crimson Tide build the lead to 13-6 over USF with 3:28 remaining in the second quarter. Good
that
moment.
Roger Hoover on the call. I'll say it if you aren't going to say it. Roger Hoover on the call. Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah, I was lucky to fill in for Chris Stewart at the end of the second quarter, a little bit into the third quarter. He had a pretty important responsibility going on the field for the Saban Field dedication. But thank you to Chris. Thank you for everyone with the network. Finally figured out how to do football play-by-play.
I think he got plenty of experience. He did a great job. That was awesome.
Thank you. It was part of a very special night at Saban Field at Bryant-Denny Stadium. And tonight's next question brought to you by J&J Apparel. Be sure to come by J&J Apparel at 1926 University Boulevard on Thursday. On Thursday, September 26th, coming up just before the Georgia game, 5:30 to 6:30, for a meet and greet with Alabama men's basketball guard Latrell Reitzel Jr. You can shop and talk shop with Bama's best all season long with Tide Thursday at J&J Apparel, your trusted source for Bama gear, online at jnjapparel.net. RTR with J&J. Once again on this show, we'll go right back to the phones. This time we go to Haleyville, where Brad joins us now. Roll Tide. Brad, he has actually just stepped away, so Cory, you got to talk to me.
Yeah, I guess we got to figure out what else to talk about for this. I thought go ahead.
One thing, our friends Johnny Montgomery, his highlighter crew, they threw this at us a couple years ago when Alabama set a record with the penalties against Tennessee in that game in Knoxville, but they just went ahead and gave us our penalty flags for the night here on stage.
Not getting thrown at us, which is a much nicer way of handling this. No distractions while we're trying to do the show. But yeah, unfortunately, this Saturday was a game where we saw plenty of penalties, and some of them were very crucial penalties. We got a couple of touchdowns that got called back that took points off the board. We got a couple holding calls from the offensive line. It just seems like that offense just couldn't find themselves in rhythm. I mean, it was. And we talked about it a minute ago. You got Tyler Booker that's bumped out to left tackle playing there, and you got Wilkin Formby playing right tackle. You got a bunch of different guys that are moving around in not their normal positions. And so hopefully we can get Proctor back in his normal position. I don't know what the status is for him, but hopefully he's able to make it back maybe this weekend, maybe by Georgia. It's going to be hard to tell. I haven't heard the injury report. Maybe you have. But, it's just when you got these guys moving around, you can only get so many reps. So you get used to playing your position. It takes you out of your normal comfort zone. And like I said earlier, you got to give credit to South Florida. I mean, those guys, they were not a pushover team. That defense came and pinned their ears back, especially on third down, and really prevented us from getting in a rhythm, and we shot ourselves in the foot a few times. It definitely hurt. Definitely hurt on that side of the ball, and then on the defensive side of the ball as well. A few penalties there, but most notably Justin Jefferson going in for a tackle. The targeting call that on review was targeting according to the officials. So with that, not only missed the rest of the game against USF, but we'll have to sit out the first half against Wisconsin on Saturday. Yeah, that's a huge blow. And, not called on the field, initiated the review by the booth, and they saw something that they thought was targeting and went back and looked at it. And, it's such a hard for a defender to be in that position. The quarterback's giving himself up. He's not sitting in the pocket. He's become a runner. He's a known runner at that point. He's not a defenseless player anymore. And you're out in the open field, and you're trying to make an open field tackle. And, I thought he made a phenomenal play. It was really close. And I think the one thing to take away from that is you just can't lower your head anymore. You got to be able to tackle with your face mask up. And as a defender, it's really tough to do because the same restrictions don't apply for the offensive guy. They can come in with the crown of their helmet and lower their head and take the blow. But you as a defender have to keep your face mask up. You cannot hit them in the face. It's moving so fast. It's so hard to prevent that from happening. I was hopeful. I really thought during the replay when they were reviewing it, I thought it was going to get called off for not targeting. And when they came out and said it was, I was kind of shocked. But if you look at the definition of the rule, then absolutely, I guess there was head-to-head contact, and he used the crown of his helmet a little bit to hit him. But it seemed like this crew that we had was calling a lot. I mean, there was a couple plays, here and there, and it all just depends. It's all subjective. But you can't argue with the fact that they were penalties. If you look at it and watch the replay, they were actually penalties. There weren't a lot that you can say that they were just terrible calls. I mean, there was something there that gave the referee a reason to throw the flag. And it's really difficult to avoid those in today's game with it athletic and fast and the style of play that you're playing in this college game. It's hard to avoid.
Certainly is. So, again, Alabama penalized 13 times, a loss of 120 yards. And, again, that very notable targeting call on Justin Jefferson. Alabama will be without him coming up for the first half against Wisconsin after he posted 10 tackles in the game against South Florida. Mentioned coming up in a couple of weeks, the Georgia game will be the next home game for the Crimson Tide. And if you're coming to Tuscaloosa for that game day, hope you'll join. The entire game day broadcast crew will be live on stage starting at 3:30 that afternoon from Vector Security Champions Lane. It's the best pregame fan fest in the country. And following our pregame show, make sure you stick around. Country music superstar Lauren Elena will take the stage for a free pregame concert. We'll also have all the early games on the largest outdoor LED screens in Tuscaloosa. Live music, food trucks, and of course ice-cold beer at the Legends Lounge, where there's never a cover charge. You can visit championslane.com each week for more details. We'll continue talking about Alabama and USF, plus what's coming up this Saturday in Madison, Wisconsin when we return. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Haynes, the running back, to the right. Milroe gets the snap, trying to avoid the rush. Steps forward, fires a pass. Catch is made, breaking a tackle, into the end zone. Touchdown, Kobe Prentice, the Calera native, adds to the Bama lead. It's a 7-point advantage with the extra point pending.
Welcome back to Crimson Tide Rewind, presented by the Alabama Department of Public Health, who reminds Alabama, don't wait, vaccinate. Not only can you call in to 877-202-BAMA, you can also give us a call or give us a question online on our Twitter line, presented by the Alabama Media Group. It's at UA_CTSN, brought to you by AL.com, your source for SEC sports. So we mentioned the defense a moment ago, Corey. A lot of good things, especially up front, and leading the way was Birmingham native Tim Keenan III, as he was named the SEC Defensive Lineman of the Week. 9 tackles. He had a sack and a half, 2.5 tackles for a loss. Great game, Tim Keenan.
Yeah, that front seven had their work cut out with Byron Brown. You know, as mobile as he was, he was the leading rusher for this team coming in this season, coming in this game, only after one game. But even last year, we knew that this guy could really make a lot of plays with his feet, very similar to what we see out of Jalen Milroe. And you know, the passing attack was not what their strength was. They did take some shots. We were able to get some pressure, move him off his spots where he wasn't able to complete some deep balls, where he had some open receivers running down the field. But I thought this defensive line has done a phenomenal job of pushing the pocket, try to contain a guy like him who likes to escape, has a lot of quarterback design runs, coming up and swarming to that football. That's what I've noticed about Womack's defense, is they do swarm to the football all over the place. As soon as we get one guy that makes contact, you can tell he's off and running. This defense is hustling to get to the football, know that it takes more than one guy to take guys down, especially guys athletic as Byron Brown was. And he's a tough test. I mean, I don't know how many quarterbacks we're going to face that are like him. He gave us the same fits last year, using his feet to extend plays. But this front seven, having the guys returning that we had from last season, they're a solid unit. We're going to keep seeing big things out of those guys.
4 sacks overall in the ballgame for the Crimson Tide. I mentioned Tim Keenan with a sack and a half, also half of a sack for Jahad Campbell. Great to see Q Robinson, too, on what we understand was a very emotional night for him. Lost his father earlier in the week. Q Robinson keeps making plays. We keep talking about him each week.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a guy that, every single week, and going into this season, he was a name that kept getting circulated as being that guy who's going to be that impact player. With Dallas Turner gone and Will Anderson gone, who's going to be that guy that's going to be a force off the edge and be able to make some plays? Now you got a new defensive coordinator, new scheme implemented, and Q Robinson's been playing his tail off. I mean, that guy, he's got a motor. He's a big boy that can run fast, and he's all over the field. I'm sure it was an emotional night for him, but he is hopefully continuing to develop as a player. But what we've seen from him so far has been exciting. I mean, this defense is fun to watch. It's a different scheme from what we're used to from Coach Saban, especially on the back end more so than up front, with the way that we do. Pattern matching was what Coach Saban liked to do with the man zone concepts. So this is a lot more zone heavy of a secondary unit, and it's been successful so far. It's been fun to watch. These guys, I think they enjoy playing this style. They keep it simple is what I like to see is, Coach Saban and Coach Smart, when he was a defensive coordinator, they like to go, wit for wit. They like to try to really identify with what the offenses were doing and try to get in that perfect play call to try to shut offenses down. And, Coach Kynes, when I was there, there was a game we played Florida, who was ranked number 5 at the time. We came in and we probably ran 2 different calls the entire game. We just had athletes out there that could go out there and make plays. And Womack seems to be leaning more towards that route than he does, trying to have, a playbook that's, 3 or 4 inches thick to try to memorize for these players. Let's get them in position, let them go play fast as possible. And they seem to be responding to it. These guys are moving all over the place.
I ask you all the time about your memories of playing for Coach Saban, but you brought up his name and I saw Todd smile, so I got to ask. Memories again of Coach Kynes, who again was able to lead Alabama in that bowl game, gave probably the greatest halftime interview we've ever seen in college football history.
I mean, if that would have happened, if he would have been doing that today with social media the way it is, what year was that? That was 2007?
Yeah. Six going into 7.
6 going into 7. I mean, he still is a meme. He went viral for that moment. And when we didn't even have Facebook at the time, or we just had Facebook at the time. He was one of the best. I mean, he was a guy that just was an old school coach, but he loved his players. And you always knew you were going to get something from him every single day. We had a guy named Chuck Kirschman, who was a linebacker from Florida, played with Tebow in high school, and he just started taking notes. He had a notebook of every little one-liner that Coach Kynes would throw out there. I mean, he could have easily written a couple books off of Coach Kynes. He was so much fun, and we had a fun defense when Coach Kynes was there. You never knew what he was going to say. I mean, he was so much fun to play for sure.
Joe Kynes, one of the best. We will continue with more coming up in a moment as we're with you live tonight from Baumhower's Victory Grille, that, of course, is ready for football, fun, and great food. And your big game headquarters all season long. More than 60 televisions dialed into your favorite team's games. You'll never miss a play of the action. If you're going to the big game, visit your local Baumhower's before or after for legendary fun, legendary food, and legendary celebrations. We'll continue with more in a moment. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
3 men to the right side. Pass goes left. Williams makes a man miss. Foot race now. 15, 10-5, touchdown. 43 yards. Jalen Milroe finds Hollywood, and Williams takes it to the house.
Hey, if you'd like to join us on tonight's show, make sure you submit your question to us on the Alabama Media Group Twitter line at UA_CTSN, brought to you by AL.com, your source for SEC sports. And how about the leading wide receiver already this season for the Alabama Crimson Tide, freshman Ryan Williams, as he is again leading the way for Alabama, not only with catches, as he has 6 catches. How about yards? 207 yards and then 3 touchdowns. And we saw he was a go-to target. It wasn't just big plays for him this past week.
Yeah, 17-year-old Ryan Williams, supposed to be a senior in high school, and he's out there, and he's immediately becomes that number 1 target for Jalen Milroe, and you can see why. I mean, he's just got that breakaway speed. He's one of the we've been spoiled at Alabama by the number of receivers that we've had. You look in the NFL right now, and every time you turn a game on, there's a receiver from Alabama that's playing at that level. And, the Julio Jones, Amari Coopers, Jerry Jeudy's, you got all these guys that are out there that are just Jalen Waddles. And now seems like you've got that next guy in Ryan Williams. He comes in immediately, young guy. That's what's impressive to me is how football has just transitioned so much into where you've got these freshmen that can show up and be an immediate impact, especially at the wide receiver position. It's not a big moment for him. Jalen Milroe knows that if he throws it up in the air high enough that Ryan Williams is going to find a way to get underneath it. And had a couple opportunities to get a couple more on the board, but he's going to find him no matter where he is in the game. He's just got that speed that separates him from everybody else, whether it's his quick passes, let him get in open space and make plays with his feet, or taking the top off the defense and getting behind those secondary pretty quickly. I mean, it's hard as a defender to keep that guy in front of you. And the first game it seemed like it was a lot more just of big plays, big chunk yards. This time it seemed like they were getting him involved with a little bit more of the intermediate routes or quick games. And just using his athleticism to get in open space and make guys miss, and he's just a special player. I mean, Julio was there Saturday. It was almost like, here we go, here's our next guy. He's impressive.
Well, it seems like, too, he's the kind of player, especially as a wide receiver, that Alabama really missed, not just last year, but even the year before. Probably have to go back to Jamison Williams for this dynamic of playmaker, wide receiver.
Yeah, you saw J-Mo last night, Sunday Night Football, and what he was able to do with that for the Lions. Big part of their offense. But you're right. Ever since then, we've had some good wide receivers, but nobody that could really, J-Mo comes in, transfers in from Ohio State, I believe it was.
Ohio State.
And even that year that we got him, we had probably had a little bit of a gap. We were trying to replace some guys that were those deep threats. You lose the Waddles of the world that can go out there and really stretch the defense. And not having a guy like that, it makes it so much easier for a defensive coach to go out there and get a game plan together, because those safeties can keep everybody in front of you. You have nobody that you have to worry about that can really, within 5 steps be behind your corner and behind your safety and cause that deep threat. So it's good to have that. It opens up the passing game for so many other guys, and it makes it so much easier for Jalen Waddle when they've got to give that guy respect. Usually you've got to, if they're trying to play man on somebody like that, usually they're gonna edge a safety a little bit closer to Ryan Williams, because they know that he's got the potential to run by that man-to-man coverage pretty quickly, and we've seen him do that. And if you don't give him that respect, well, that's 2 guys on 1 in the passing game. It's going to open up some opportunities for a lot of these other guys. And it's for an offensive coordinator, it's phenomenal to have that weapon. And for a defensive coordinator, it's an absolute nightmare, because you just can't put, Coach Saban used to put guys on islands and say, go cover a man-to-man and he's yours. And it's really hard to do that when you're facing a guy like Ryan Williams.
Off to a special start through 2 games here at the University of Alabama. Ryan Williams, so far the leading receiver for the Crimson Tide. Crimson Tide Rewind is presented by the Alabama Department of Public Health. The Alabama Department of Public Health reminding Alabama, don't wait, vaccinate. More coming up in a moment. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Jam Miller, the running back, to the left of Milroe. He'll get the handoff. He'll stay on his feet. He'll turn it up. He'll go down the sideline. 30, cutting it back, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Alabama. Jam Miller, 56 yards. Icing on the cake as the Tide leads it now 34-16.
Chris Stewart on the call, one of the many highlights from Alabama's win against South Florida. This season, stay cool when you purchase a limited edition Alabama Yeti. These vintage Yeti cups only available at Champions Lane and program stands all throughout Bryant-Denny Stadium. Elevate your game day with Yeti. So the Crimson Tide now 2-0 on the season. There are some other teams, Cory, not only around the SEC, but around college football that cannot say the same.
Yeah, there's plenty of them. I mean, especially in this new 12-team playoff environment, it's always huge to get wins whenever you can get them. And there's a lot of teams that didn't have the same successes over the weekend. And, it's going to be tough. But even with 12 teams, there's a lot more opportunities. You can lose a couple games and still find your way into the playoff. It's early in September. Obviously, we've seen the committees in the past that have not given as much weight to those early games as it gets later in the season to see what these teams really look like. But there's some teams that definitely have some work to do. But there's a lot of talent in this league this year that we're going to have to be ready for, and we play a decent amount of them. One of them that we don't play this year after playing them for the last 2 years is Texas.
Looks pretty good.
They look pretty good against that Michigan team. And obviously, Michigan loses a lot of players to the draft. You saw Harbaugh stick around, and a lot of those guys stick around for that last season when they had that core group of guys. Most of them are now gone, but Texas went out there and took care of business in the big house. They looked pretty incredible. So Alabama's got their work cut out for them. You take wins whenever you can possibly get them, and we're definitely gonna have our work cut out. Missouri looks good. We've seen a lot of guys. LSU fall into USC. That's a team that has a lot of talent. Falls to USC in the first week, but they're going to give us all that they possibly can. And Ole Miss, Texas A&M has that early loss, but this league is wide open. There's a lot of football left to be played, and eventually we're going to be playing each other here pretty soon.
Absolutely. The team that Alabama will play last in the regular season, of course, the Auburn Tigers. They had a Week 2 loss against California, and just knowing what's ahead for Auburn on their schedule, the first couple SEC games will be against Arkansas, Oklahoma. They're going to have to go to Georgia, have to go to Missouri and Kentucky, and then finish up with A&M and Alabama. It's a tough road ahead for the Tigers.
Yeah, if you're looking at at it from what we've seen so far throughout the season, it's hard to find some wins on that schedule. I mean, you look at, Kentucky was one that kind of surprised me this past weekend, loses South Carolina in convincing fashion. I mean, but other than that, you've got Georgia, Missouri, Oklahoma, Arkansas. Arkansas is a huge underdog going to Oklahoma State and had them going into overtime with chances to win that ball game. I think that was probably the theme of this weekend, was just all these teams really were hanging around or had a lot closer ball games than most people thought. Some of them ended up on the wrong side of the win-loss column, but this league is always stacked full. I think the AP poll came out, and most of the top 10 is littered with SEC talent, and rightfully so. And then now you've got Tennessee that's made a rebound over the last couple years. They're going to be a tough test down the road as well. So this is going to be an interesting season for us. Take the wins when you can get them. We got another tough test on Saturday against Wisconsin, and then we're going to be off and running, ready for some SEC play.
We'll talk more about the Crimson Tide and the Badgers when we return, coming up in a moment, as you listen to Crimson Tide Rewind live from Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Milroe will hand it off to Justice Haynes, going right side, cuts it back, stays on his feet. Haynes at the 10, Haynes at the 5, Haynes into the end zone, touchdown, Alabama, 29 yards.
Time to take a look at the prescription for success presented by Payless Drugs. Payless Drugs, your locally owned family pharmacy, 4 locations in Birmingham. Payless can handle your prescriptions, over-the-counter solutions, and home delivery. Payless at mynewpharmacy.com. So coming up on Saturday, early start for Alabama on the road in Big Ten country. An 11 a.m. kickoff in Madison, Wisconsin, Camp Randall Stadium. It'll be the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Wisconsin Badgers. Our radio airtime for Saturday will be 8 a.m. from Wisconsin. We're looking forward to this trip. We've been talking about it for the last few years, and having this game on the schedule, certainly a good thing. SEC versus Big Ten, and this Wisconsin team's off to a 2-0 start.
Yeah, they are. These are two of the premier conferences in college football right now. We've seen these two conferences always represented in the postseason. It's going to be a good matchup. Wisconsin, obviously, they're coming off of some rebuilding years. They're trying to, get some things changed out, but they did get a great transfer in from Miami, and Tyler Van Dyke, who's a great player. We've seen him. SEC fans know him well. He's had some pretty good games against, I think it was last year against Texas A&M, had 4 or 5 touchdowns. He's one of those guys that he's hit or miss. Like, he's a guy that can really have some big games, or he can be off, and everybody wants to anoint him as one of the great quarterbacks in college football, and he can show flashes of that a lot of times throughout the season. We've seen it on a lot of Saturdays when he was wearing that Miami uniform, and then he'll come out and when you expect him to have big games and kind of lay a dud. These first 2 games, they've had Western Michigan, I believe was the first one, and they go out there and they put some points on the board. They had some good things to show for it, but it's really not been from his arm, which a lot of people expected it to be. It's been more in the rushing attack for Wisconsin, but there's a lot of talent there. They've got a great staff up there. It's a proud program. Camp Randall's going to be rocking. Whenever Alabama shows up, they're going to be ready to make it as loud as possible, as difficult as possible at that 11 o'clock kick. I understand it. Yeah. I understand that it's, the market, the TV market is one of the best rated slots of the day. That big noon kickoff is one, and I love Joel Klatt. He's one of the best ones. I enjoy watching his games, but Alabama fans, I remember we used to dread having those 11 o'clock kicks, because that means you got to wake up 6 a.m. You got to get going pretty quickly. You don't have time to watch game day or do anything, kind of get in your routine. The biggest thing that this team needs is to be able to get their feet on the ground and hit it running. And the running game, the rushing attack is going to be one of those things that's going to help us out. Whenever you got these early starts, you want to get your running backs involved early. We had 40 rushing attempts, including Jalen Milroe last week. Jan Miller, Justice Haynes have really proved to be a very great dynamic duo, two-headed monster from that rushing attack. And I'm expecting big things out of them. That's a weakness that we can try to exploit from this Wisconsin defense. I think their rushing defense is one of their weaknesses, and we're going to just go up there, eat the clock, especially in these early games, eat the clock as much as possible, kind of wear these teams down. We saw us wear down South Florida towards the end of the game, albeit it was, the last 5 minutes. It took a while for us to do it, but had a lot of success on the ground. I expect this offensive staff to go out there and try to establish the run pretty early against this Wisconsin defense, who's known for having some pretty stellar defenses in the past.
They certainly are. And again, Alabama's offensive line, something to watch. Tyler Booker, we really didn't even talk about this as much, but he moves over to that left tackle position. Elijah Pritchett takes over at right tackle in the fourth quarter. You expect something similar if Caden Proctor's not able to go?
Yeah, Elijah Pritchett comes in at the end of the game, and he's still not 100%. I think he even said he's about 60-70% healthy, and goes in there and plays well. You can't put anything on one guy. It's, circumstances are completely different towards the end of the game. You've got a worn-out USF defense that has had some success, but I imagine there's probably going to be a shift in this offensive line of what it's going to look like, who's going to be where. Tyler Booker is one of those guys, no matter where you put him, you're going to try to run the football wherever he is. And I was impressed by the way that he played, being out that, pushing out the left tackle is not an easy gig for anybody. So for him to go from guard, where he's always been, and play as well as he did, had maybe one penalty, I believe. I don't know what it was, but overall I thought he played extremely well. But I imagine the shift is coming. They're going to have some different faces, some different names, depending on who's healthy. Hopefully we can get this line back to 100% at some point in the future quickly, because we got some tough matchups coming up, not only this weekend but in the next few weekends.
Alabama against Wisconsin again coming up on Saturday at 11 a.m. Central. Again, radio airtime will be 8 o'clock here on the network. We will set the table for what's coming up over the next few weeks of Crimson Tide football when we return for our final segment in just a moment. This is Crimson Tide Rewind. It's presented by the Alabama Department of Public Health, reminding Bama fans, don't wait, vaccinate. This is the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield. What's on tap next for Bama is brought to you by Bud Light. Bud Light, proud sponsor of Alabama Athletics. It's easy to drink. It is easy to enjoy. And Cory Reamer, we hope on Saturday we get to enjoy Alabama's third win of the year and beat Wisconsin, then focus on the bye week in Georgia after that.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be a fun game. I can't wait to watch it. Luke Fickell's up there. He's done a phenomenal job. He was at Cincinnati, had Cincinnati in the playoff a couple of years ago. And so we know that he knows how to coach up a good football team. And he knows how important this one is for this Wisconsin program. 2 games, don't read too much into what they've done so far. Obviously, had some struggles just like Alabama did last week for their first 2 games against Western Michigan, which is head coach is Lance Taylor up there, former Alabama football player. He's got a great football program going on. These were not 2 easy games, even though they might not be names that you typically see giving a team like Wisconsin fits. They're good football teams that they face. Don't read too much into that. This team is going to be well coached. Luke Fickell has done a phenomenal job wherever he's been, Ohio State, Cincinnati. So this Alabama team better be ready to go, traveling on the road, playing that early kick. There's a lot of reasons for us to not get off and go into a fast start, but hopefully Coach DeBoer wakes them up early, gets them going, gets them started fast.
Coming up here on this show, Crimson Tide Rewind, we will be back with you next Monday to talk about the Wisconsin game and the week after that. We know Alabama has the open date coming up on September 21st. That's still hard to wrap my head around, an open date this early in the year. But
yeah, you got two this year. We got two open weeks this year.
And the first one is coming up on September 21st. So plenty to talk about. We'll have this show again with you all throughout the football season. Monday night, 6 p.m. here at Baumhower's Victory Grille in Vestavia Hills. Cory, safe travels. Have fun with the golf trip. Football. Roll Tide.
Absolutely. Roll Tide. Looking forward to it. It's going to be a fun week.
That's Cory Reamer. I'm Roger Hoover. Thank you so much for listening tonight to Crimson Tide Rewind, again presented by the Alabama Department of Public Health, live from Baumhower's Victory Grille here in Vestavia Hills. If you missed any portion of tonight's show, you can always catch it on demand on the Alabama Insider Podcast. You can download and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. A video replay is also available each and every Tuesday morning on the CTSN YouTube page. And don't forget about Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, coming up tomorrow and Thursday at 2 p.m. streaming live on all CTSN social media platforms. So for Jerry Kelly back at our Learfield studios, our engineer Todd Robbins, everybody with us tonight at Baumhower's, Cory Reamer, I'm Roger Hoover saying thanks for listening and Roll Tide.